there you are. You know, you underestimate how cold it is for it to get at night when you leave the water bowl out and it's frozen.
The only thing worse would have been if I had launched myself from that tent and ran into Channing Tatum and Ryan Reynolds.
That's a bit of a problem.
So I have a tradition. Whenever we go on a road trip, there is a road trip bottle. And the idea is it is sealed when you leave home, and every night when you put in for the night, you pour yourself a little drink, toast the day's safe travels, and you finish it when you get home. You have that last mouthful when you get home. Well, obviously, I miscalculated on this trip. This is one of those trips where it seemed like everything that could go wrong did go wrong. Now, it wasn't an unmitigated disaster, and that's because of a lot of planning and a lot of foresight on our part. But there was stuff that happened that there is absolutely no way that anyone could prepare for. So I'm going to share with you what happened, what went wrong, how we recovered from what went wrong to what went right, and what some of the things that you can do to help yourself. Because hey, I'm gonna make the mistakes so you don't have to. Cheers. It got cold. It got very cold. In fact, we put off leaving home. We put it back a day because I had originally planned to leave on Friday, and they were calling for like minus 20 degrees Celsius that night. There was no way that we were going to get past that in the amount of time that we had, so we left Saturday morning. It still got cold. It got colder than the weather app called for. So even with popping the vent of the trailer a little bit so that, you know, we could get a little bit of ventilation, we still had frozen windows and ice growing on the frames. But we stayed toasty warm, and we stayed toasty warm because I have apparently an almost unhealthy obsession with down-filled blankets. Now, most of them are artificial down, but they were so warm that Leo would build himself a little cave, a little nest, and was just happy as everything. Everyone's ears were nice and warm, which was how I judge, you know, everyone's comfort level. Leo had his little lounge jacket, as I call it, his little gray fleece, and he would, you know, put his feet into it every night to get dressed. And that was great. We were actually quite comfortable. And then we'd emerge from the trailer and find the dog's water bowls almost completely frozen through. But we were fine, even peeling, the curtains off of the windows. So completely comfortable still. Possible catastrophe could have happened had I left the water jugs. We have 5-gallon jugs full of water. Had I left them tipped down, there would have been the possibility that the valves could have been frozen, but nope, I always tipped them back up and left enough room for the ice to expand. So no problems there. There was nothing like waking up one morning trying to break camp, because you can see the rain coming in on your weather app when it was actually working. Said that there was rain coming in. You take a look at your tire and one of your rear tires is almost completely flat. Not an unmitigated disaster. I have one of those plug-in tire inflators. Got that thing, inflated enough to drive. We happened to find Shook Tire Pros in Blairsville, Georgia. They hooked us up, had us out in no time. Big shout out to them. They are super cool. And it was a nail in my tire. Right. Must have for any road trip. Okay, so now we got that out of the way. Let's go finish packing up. We're mostly done, right? Mostly done. Just gotta put these little monsters away. Right, monster. The weather apps, you have literally one job. Do you think maybe you can do them at least kind of close to properly? Just a thought. Because when I'm judging my vacation and I stay flexible so that we can work around the weather, But then you're telling me, okay, go to this place is going to have, you know, it doesn't have to be sunshine and lollipops all day, but at least above freezing would be nice. And then it's raining and the temperature drops like 20 degrees, it felt like. So that was a significant damper, and we actually ended up coming back early because of that, because it just wherever, we ended up in I guess a string of storms, and there was no getting out of it. So unfortunately, we came back a day early, completely misjudged because of the weather app. And then when people say expect the unexpected, there is no way that you could prepare for some things, or even it could even be on your radar to be unexpected. Case in point, I finally set up my privy tent. I'm making use of it, as one does. And all of a sudden, I hear tromp, 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 tromp through the dried leaves. And it's just like, I'm kind of busy at the moment. It's like, what is that? And the dogs were all tied up, so I wasn't worried about them, but it was obviously not the dogs rustling around the leaves. So I scamper up. I'm like, okay, done. All right, pulling up my pants, doing up my pants. I step out, and there's some guy, military guy, head to toe camo. He's carrying more weight than probably I am. It's like, well, this is awkward. I'm like, hey. He goes, oh, you know, hey, doggos, you know, chomp, 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 chomp. You know, like, am I on a path or something? He goes, no, just an orienteering exercise. Chomp, 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 chomp. Well, that's great. Okay, cool. He goes, yeah, I'm not allowed to use the road. I was like, oh, okay, great. Still hiking up my pants. And the icing on the cake, dude, gorgeous. Like, he could have been the next, like, cover model of GIGQ or Rangers Illustrated or Soldiers of Gorgeous. The only thing worse would have been if I had launched myself from that tent and ran into Channing Tatum and Ryan Reynolds. But wait, there's more. Short time later, camo truck pulls up to the end of my campsite. Guy hops out and goes, you know, hey, no, you're fine. You're not in the way. But you might hear some live fire, you know, around 6:30. I'm like, okay, cool. Because I had heard live fire the night before. I'm a country kid. I don't got problems with guns going off. Cool. He's like, yep, no, you're fine. Oh, and you might see some Rangers marching on by. I was like, okay, cool. All right. I'm like, yeah, well, hey, I've already had one guy, you know, scare the crap out of me as I come out of the privy. And the guy's like, sure enough, now that I know there's people, you know, lingering around in the trees, I start looking for them. You know, look over the next ridge. I'm like, oh yeah, there's a couple over there, and then they disappear. So I'm like, well, I'm expecting them to come back the same way that the other guy went. And then I'm hearing them, you know, stomp, stomp, stomp in the grass and the leaves. Lily's like losing her mind because she's like, I can hear things, but I can't see them. King and Leo, because the boys being those boys, they were, you know, passed out in the trailer. But at some point, you know, King comes out and he's like, he knew where they were, and he was just watching. But, you know, cool. So it's like, okay, cool, whatever. I look over. At one point, I did see a couple of them, but again, they never came tromping on by. So I'm thinking, like, have I thrown a monkey wrench into their exercise? Like, have they got to now avoid going through the site or by the site? And whatever, all's good. So it starts getting dark. We climb into the trailer. We're relaxing. I'm like, okay, 6:30's coming. I haven't heard anything, so everything's it's like, oh, there it is. So for about a minute, it sounds like they were just blowing off all of their extra ammo. Let's use the annual budget on ammo. Cool. And then around 7, boom! And that was it. So I'm going, okay, well, this is unexpected. Definitely unexpected. But then, of course, nature calls. So I have to now go back out to the prairie. I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm not going to be quite so obvious. I'm going to put the red light on my headlamp. I'm going to go. And of course, I kind of miscalculated where it was. I knew I put it behind a big tree. Well, I went to the wrong big tree. Then I had to cut back through that big tree. And then as I'm coming back, well, there's all the red lights down at the road. I was like, well, I know that nature, again, is a call that cannot be put on hold. But it's like, can we not advertise the fact that I have a bladder the size of a walnut? To that guy who want tromping through my site, I remember your name. If you happen to see this, and I don't expect you will, but next round's on me, because I want to know what your thoughts are when you went walking by this little tent and some wild-eyed Canadian girl comes jumping out, hiking up her drawers. We can have a laugh. Cheers. So in summary, carry lots of packable down blankets. Artificial down is great because if you have dogs that like to get wet or drool like King does, they still retain their warmth. I prefer those to, to sleeping bags because you can, mishmash them and make any kind of configuration that you want. Or if you're like Leo, you can create a little den for yourself. Flat tires are inevitable. How you handle them is up to you. So having a plug-in tire inflator, great. I have used that thing so many times, more than my booster cables. So that says something. I have been the savior many a times in many a lonely parking lot. Staying flexible, great way to avoid the weather and being stuck in a, small trailer with very wet dogs and very bad storms. And whew, they were some doozies. And don't be surprised if some guy goes tromping through your campsite in camouflage when you're trying to have a tinkle. Let me know what you think. Has this got you thinking about, when things go wrong on the road? What has been your, curveballs? How have you handled them? I'd love to know. Like, subscribe, share if you see any value to this. Thank you for spending time with us. I really appreciate it. I know I say it with every video, and that's because it's true. You guys are amazing. I love seeing all the comments from everyone and helping each other out. It's great. And sharing your stories because I love ripping them off. I love learning from each other. This is a collaborative effort. And safe travels. We'll see you out there. I think I got some stuff to take care of too.